thank you all for coming out tonight. We appreciate to have worked with our PTSA and Tooele Junior High to bring this presentation to you today. So we're very grateful to Autumn Behill for all of her work as our PTSA president. This presentation was kind of her idea, and we talked about it for quite a while and figured, all right, this is something that could bless and benefit our community. So we're looking forward to sharing with you and hope that you'll take the message and share with others. And if that can continue to grow, we want to do it again.
Perfect. Okay, so first, Tooele Education Foundation, they support a number of programs throughout Tooele County School District. When we were discussing hosting a parent night, TEF was mentioned very first, as they are such a huge support to all of our students and teachers. KristenDuke.com is a friend of mine. You can find Kristen online via her website and at Kristen Duke Chats on Instagram. She's a mother of 4 that focuses on creating a trusted space with your kids. Visit her site, give her a follow to see how parenting can be fun and full of joy. National PTA and Utah PTA is a local organization. We receive a lot of support and encouragement from both our state and national PTA leaders. Each year, National PTA provides thousands of dollars to schools to host events just like this. VCI is a local-owned business that supplies hazardous waste collection containers. VCI is owned by an active parent in our PTSA. Thank you for supporting Tooele Junior High. He's up there. The Tooele Junior High School admin and teachers, they definitely support all of our ideas and were instrumental in helping us host this event tonight. So I had the opportunity to meet Juliana virtually through Kristen Duke. After hearing the Healthy Screen Habits information, I was just excited to share it with as many people as possible. I walked away feeling capable that I could share these habits with my kids, capable that we could implement these habits in our home. And there's 5 healthy habits, and I felt like even if we just walked away with one, we were going in the right direction. So I am confident that you guys are going to walk away feeling capable too tonight. So thank you, Juliana, for coming, and her family for supporting her too, and have at it.
My name is Juliana Lorenzen. Professionally, I'm an athletic trainer. I do sports medicine, which is the prevention of injuries, the immediate care of injuries, and the rehabilitation of injuries. And as my kids were growing up, in addition to being an athletic trainer, they were my full-time job. I've got 4 kids, and about the time that they ranged from age 15 down to about 4, we were entering into this whole social media world, phone world, and I was realizing that I thought I had it all figured out. And a friend of mine who had kids who were a little bit younger, she's like, Juliana, what are you doing? Tell me all of the things you've learned. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this and this and this, and I thought I had it all dialed in. And then the very next week, I found out that my daughter, who was 10, she had an iPod Touch. And what I didn't know is that you can access the whole world of everything on this little iPod Touch. And that was the beginning of a deep dive into all things screen related. And what I could do as a parent to make sure that my kids were safe, but also that they were thriving. And because I come from the sports medicine background, the prevention of injuries, the immediate care, and the rehabilitation, I kind of looked at it from that direction. Now, this friend of mine who was asking what I was doing, and then I quickly had to go tell her, I really have no idea what I'm doing. And be humble enough to recognize that she's a social worker, a licensed clinical social worker. And then we had another friend that we were talking with, and she is an early childhood specialist with her master's degree in education, particularly in motivation and intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. And so she had some great insights into how to navigate parenting technology. I had a 4th friend who is an educational psychologist, and she brought in her psychology side of things and the different take that she had and the professional ability she had. And so together, as we were trying to use skills to find out what the research-backed scientifically based best practices were, not just the sky is falling and our kids are going to die and our kids are horrible, they can't stay off screens. We didn't want to go that route. We wanted to go the route of what are the research-backed insights, what are best practices, and then provide an easy way for people to be able to access that information and then decide for themselves what's best for their family. So good news, kiddos, I'm not here to tell your parents that screens are all evil and you shouldn't ever use them. So just, breathe a sigh of relief. We're not an anti-screen organization. We are a pro-intentional use. It's a matter of how can we use technology to do good? How can we use it as a tool to accomplish our objectives and what we want to have happen, instead of it being a tool for big technology companies to use and soak up as much of our time to accomplish their objectives. So hopefully by the end of tonight, rather than just being scared, you will go home having specific practical tools, practical habits you can develop in your own lives individually and as a family that will leave you feeling empowered and able to be the boss of your tech. When I was learning more about the Tooele School District, I was looking at the website and I saw that there is I guess it's a poster contest that the district is running right now. And it was so fun to see the posters that the elementary school students here in your district had designed. And so first off, good job parents, because from their posters, you can see that you guys are you know a lot of important things about what to be concerned about, what some potential dangers are. You know that just because somebody on a video game says that they're your age doesn't mean that they are. You know not to give your personal information. There's a lot of things that your kids know that I can tell from looking at these posters. So good job. I just want to start off with that. It's really easy to come to one of these things and then leave feeling like, I'm doing it all wrong. But I wanted to tell you, you're doing so many things right. And hopefully we can just add to your arsenal. So then that way you'll leave empowered. Isn't this fun? Do not play video games more than an hour a day. You might miss fun stuff. The person who designed this one is absolutely brilliant. You go to the next one. We got to look at our digital well-being, not in terms of don't ever do it, but in terms of what sort of role should it take in our life. Just like in the food pyramid, the snacks, the junk food, the desserts, the crumble cookies, we love them, we want them, we need them. But the key is finding that balance and making sure that it stays in the same place, that our screen time stays in the same place that those treats stay, that not necessarily taking up as much of our time, because when you do that, you allow time for other really important things. And one of the reasons why that is important is because when we don't have time for the other things that are more important than the video games, because as much as they are amazing and fun, there's other things that will develop our brains in ways that we need to. Jonathan Haidt did a lot in this past year to increase awareness of this. When we started Healthy Screen Habits in 2018, we really were like Chicken Little, and everybody looked at us like we were crazy and saying that the sky was falling. But it's been really neat to see him on Good Morning America and on the Today Show sharing the same things that we've been saying since 2018. And one of the things he said that I really like is we have overprotected children in the real world and underprotected them in the virtual world. So if you go to the next one, I love this picture that he shows in his book of what a playground looked like several decades ago. That this used to be, maybe not quite to that extent, but if you grew up the time I did, you remember the metal slides and the fireman poles. And so if you go to the next one, there's a picture of what a playground nowadays looks like. Kids up front, which playground would you say your childhood included? The second one. Right? Which one looks like it might be more fun? First one. Right? But it's our fears of them getting injured physically that have led to this shift. But what we have not realized is we have protected them in the physical world, but the the digital world is the wild, wild west. Go to the next. One of the things we like to say is that if you think about the internet, think about being online as being a place. That when your child is behind closed doors on the internet, they are just as exposed to everything out there as if you had dropped them off at the corner, like downtown in Pioneer Park. They are just as exposed to everything out there because the internet is not innocuous. It is like a place. So now we're gonna go back to our brains and why it's so important that we use that internet. We gotta be intentional about protecting our kids from it and use technology for good and make sure it doesn't get in the way of other things that are really important. I love this picture of something. Do you guys know what these are? Yes, see, I told you guys were the experts. Yes, these are brain cells. Who knows what a brain cell is called? Yes, see, experts. Neurons. Our brain cells are called neurons. When we are born, we have about 100 billion brain cells. And each brain cell, it has these little branches off that are called dendrites. They have about 10,000 branching off points on each of the 100 billion brain cells that you are born with. So what happens is there's potential for 100 quadrillion connections. And as you have experiences, your brain develops based upon the experiences you have. So the things you do will connect different parts of your brain to each other. When you're talking to people, that's how babies learn to talk, right? So if a baby, our development of speech depends on two things. One is genetics, and the other one is environment. So every child is born, typically, with the ability to develop speech. But what they're exposed to, the experiences they have, determine how those brain cells all connect up and line up with each other. So a baby that's growing up in China and a baby that's growing up in Utah, what's going to be different in the way that their language development is different? Do you speak the same as somebody in China? What's different about it?
The environment.
Yes, dependent on what you hear as a baby, it determines what parts of the brain fire, and it determines how those neurons wire together. Because we've got some kids here, I'm going to tell you a creepy story. I usually just save this one for my middle school students. So since you're here, there is an experiment done by two Nobel Prize winners. So they weren't creepy scientists. They were like well-respected scientists, but they were looking to see how the brain developed. And one of the ways that they did this is they took little kittens when they were very first born and they sewed their eyes shut, because that's how they could control what experiences that kitten had with vision and whether the brain was able to connect and develop the parts of the brain that connected to the optical nerve and allowed them to be able to see. After 3 months, they unstitched the eyeballs, but guess what? It was so sad. The kittens never ever learned to see. They were not able to develop vision because during that very vital time of their brain development, they did not get the right inputs to develop that vision center, to connect those parts of the brain to each other. So what does this have to do with you guys as kids? With us as adults, our brains are a little bit more developed, so we're out of that window of it's a window of sensitivity is what the scientists call it. So it's really important. I'm just going to give it to you. We adults need better screen habits for sure, but that's one of the reasons why your parents are always like, you gotta spend less time on screens, because your brains are developing at a faster rate than ours are as adults. So we need to improve our screen habits, but that's why it's even more important that you do. So you don't end up like a cute little kitten that can't see, or other things that you don't develop in your brain because you miss out on that window of sensitivity where when you have experiences, parts of your brain will develop in such a way that you will develop the ability to not only see, but Here's an example. When you read fiction books, science shows that you develop empathy because you put yourself in somebody else's shoes when you're reading that book. When you read fairy tales, they're able to do these tests of the brain. When you read fairy tales, it increases development in the part of the brain where you have imagination. All of these things, it's really cool to see how the experiences you have determine how your brain develops. So we'll go to the next slide. Your brain is still developing up until about the time you're 25. Serious development. And then the next thing that's important with that is as you get older and older, there's things that are developing within your brain also, things that you are more interested in at certain ages. There's a child development specialist named Erik Erikson, and so he had these different stages of child development, and he talked about how from ages 5 to 12, it's where you are developing sort of a sense of competence. I don't know if you guys remember, I remember during that time period, I was always trying to put on shows for my parents. I'm like doing a routine or a dance routine or a gymnastics routine or something on the monkey bars and come watch me, right? Anybody else remember that? Maybe it was just at our house. But one of the biggest demographics that are using TikTok are this 5 to 12-year-olds and TikTok is capitalizing on that child development age, that need for that 5 to 12-year-old is, I want to perform and I need that validation of, am I doing something industrious or not? And then that inferiority or not is determined by, well, TikTok designs it so that way you get likes or you get shares or you show up on people's For You page. So it feeds that. And so tech companies take our psychology, take everything we know about our brain development and about our psychology to make it so that we are more drawn to it. Okay, so the next stage of development is more the age of 13 to 21. As you get a little bit older, you're trying to figure out who you are. When I was growing up, the voices in my world that helped me figure out who I was were pretty much some of the people in this room. It was my parents, it was my friends, maybe my wider community, people at school, but that was what helped me decide who I was and what my identity was. Now, with other social media apps, who all can influence our idea of who we are and our worth? Anyone. And do you know that the more the social media apps, they know that. And so they work in such a way that they try to feed you information that anytime, later on I'll show you, there's a slide that talks about algorithms and how it's designed to capitalize on all of these things. Everything that has ever been discovered about our physiology and about our psychology, they have used to make it so that it's harder to get off of our devices and harder to use our time to do those things that will develop our brains in the way that we really want them to be developed. This is called persuasive design. And there's, like I said, I've referred to a couple of different methods of it. Some other ones are, well, there's persuasive design, and another term that you may have heard or you may hear in the future is called the attention economy. When you go to use TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, raise your hand if you have to pay for it. So if you're not paying for it, you are not the customer. And if you are not the customer, you are the product. So your time, your attention is how these tech companies make money. So the more they can get you to spend time on their devices, on your devices, the more time you spend on a video game, more time you spend playing Fortnite, the more time you spend scrolling Instagram or Facebook. So I'm getting to the parents too and not just you guys, right? Okay, so the way that they do it, we're just gonna gloss over this. We could do a whole thing about the brain science, but we wanna get to the actual tools. So dopamine is a word that in 2018, nobody had ever heard of, but it is the way that our brain, it craves certain things and it brings us back. Remember those crumble cookies we were talking about? when you remember having had one, every time you think of it, it releases little dopamine and it makes you crave that. So when you use your device, all of them are designed to release more dopamine. So the little red dot that tells you you have messages, it is designed because it releases that dopamine. What's going to happen if I click this? Who are those 5 messages from? The red has been determined through science to be something that sets off a different part of your psychology that, oh, I need to extinguish that because it's red and it's fire and I need to make it go away. Like I said, everything about our psychology and our physiology, they hack. There's a removal of stopping cues. At the end of the day, you know it's the end of the day because why? Right? When you are scrolling through YouTube Shorts, unless you have specifically turned off autoplay, guess what happens as soon as one video goes off? The next one. There's no natural stopping cues. They've removed that intentionally and made it so by default, it's always going to be the autoplay. We have to go in and turn that off and be the boss of our technology. It's all designed upon this whole intermittent reward system where you don't know when you go to pull up Instagram, you don't know whether there's going to be something from a lot of people or just a little bit. It's the infinite scroll, and then there's that anticipation. It's the same as a slot machine. It works on the same parts of your brain. And then I don't know if you've noticed, especially over the past year, it's always worse in an election cycle. The things that are served up to you when you go to look at your screen typically, it's the more enrages you, the more likely it is for you to spend more time there. So that's why we say what enrages, engages, and that gives them your time. So this was one that I think everybody needs to know. Once again, in 2018, the word algorithm was something that only computer programmers knew, right? Who knows what an algorithm is now? If you don't, it's totally okay. Interesting, your kids know a lot of times more than you do. So an algorithm is a computer program. It's the way that different apps, I'm going to define it within the world of screen stuff. It is how it determines what's going to show up next in your social media feed. And different social media platforms have different algorithms, and some are better than others. TikTok's is extremely good. In fact, it's funny, I was talking to my husband about, oh, there's nothing bad on TikTok. All I get are German people cooking food and astronomy stuff. And I'm like, it's really good. It figured out what you like. What is really, and that can be really good in some ways, but when you have a person who is struggling with something, whether it be self-harm, depression, body image, guess what that algorithm serves up in that case? Anybody know? Yes, and more of it. The Wall Street Journal did a research project where they created 100 fresh accounts on TikTok and gave each account 2 words and programmed it to just spend like an extra half a second on posts that had something to do with those 2 words. So the one that had the 2 words were depression and sadness. Within the first 36 minutes, a fresh new account, within 36 minutes, 93% of the content on the For You page, which is what is served up. For those that don't know, good job, not be on TikTok, but those who do know, it's what is served up to you. And when you open it up, that's what you're gonna see. 93%. So if you've got a kid who is struggling, if you personally are struggling with depression and you're feeling bad and then you turn to that technology because that's the easiest thing to do when you're feeling bad, when you're feeling vulnerable, can you see how this is gonna be like a perpetuating? There's no wonder that there has been a huge uptick in mental health disorders and struggles in our society. So when the smartphone first came out, we were the boss of our tech. It was able to be a tool because all of these hacks, all of these persuasive design and attention economy techniques that big tech is using, they hadn't been developed yet. But since then, they have. And now, oftentimes, we are at the mercy of what our devices are serving up to us. So how do we take back the power? Well, first of all, we've got to be really honest with ourselves. In a typical day, you've got 8 hours for sleep, 8 hours for school, and the other 8 hours typically would be those personal activities you love doing that are going to create those brain connections, that are going to develop your brain in the most optimal way. So, want to know what research shows is the typical average use of an American? 8 hours of screen time. So when you have that 8 hours, something's got to give. It's going to come from somewhere. So if you click it again, Tara, it might cover up sleep and school. It might, if you click it again, it may cover up your personal time where you no longer are going outside and climbing a tree. You're no longer figuring out how to build things. You're no longer doing those things that you would normally do that would create the next amazing inventions in our world. So when that's not happening, when you're losing sleep, or when you're not gaining the experiences you need in school, it is going to have a negative impact. And I cannot tell you how excited I was when the Surgeon General finally came out with the warning and the advisory report about how social media is having a profound negative impact on the mental well-being of our country, particularly our youth. And then he had a follow-up report about how parents are struggling so much because of this whole cycle. And it was just so wonderful to hear him say the same things we've been saying. And so many times the big tech, I don't know if you watched when the big tech companies were in front of Congress and they say, well, parents just need to do more. Parents need to teach their kids. And it's like, I love how we go back to he said, you're pitting a child against the world's greatest designers, and it's just not a fair fight. And he also said, the children and their parents, that's still not a fair fight. That hopefully that the more we can get the word out there about what they know, what the designers at these big tech companies know, then if you know that too, then you can know how to turn it around for your good and not be part of the increase in the depressive episodes and the increase in suicide. It totally aligns with when smartphones became available and when social media apps became ubiquitous. So let's move on. Self-harm rates have increased astronomically. When I was growing up, people didn't even know what self-harm was for the most part. Now, all you've got to do is open up your social media and it will feed it to you. So we developed this visual to help explain this cycle, the cycle of vulnerability. When you're feeling vulnerable, the easiest thing to do is to turn to your technology. But when you do, remember when we talked about how these apps, they release dopamine? They release it at a higher than normal level, which leaves you feeling worse. And then when you feel worse, then you go back to the technology, and then you get into this cycle of vulnerability. And if you've never experienced the joy and experienced how good it feels to climb a tree or how good it feels to go ride a bike, you may not know what else you can do instead. So you just keep going back to what you know and what's easy, which is the technology. So instead, hopefully before you leave here tonight, you'll know, where do I turn when I'm feeling vulnerable? Well, hopefully it's not back to our technology. If you go to the next slide, Tara, on our website, we created this tool that families can download for free so you can kind of help your children, you can help yourself know what to do instead. There are some copies out on the table too that you can take home tonight. Or like I said, you can download it for free from healthyscreenhabits.org. If you never know how good you feel when you do good, then you wouldn't necessarily know that when you're feeling vulnerable, what can I do to do good? And then with hobbies, nature, hugs. Did you know the science behind a hug? If you hug somebody, it releases not dopamine, it releases something called oxytocin. And when you do that, that leaves you feeling better. So just like technology uses our brain science and leaves us coming back to it, if we understand brain science, we can know ways that we can release other chemicals in our brain. So hug somebody. When you're feeling down, hug somebody. When you see somebody you know who's feeling down, hug them, give them a hug. It will literally change their physiology and leave them feeling better. Moving your body releases endorphins. Once again, scientifically, it's going to leave you feeling better. And the relationships, when you have a relationship with each other, with friends, with family, with a higher power, as you turn to that, you will feel better than when you turn to technology. And then down in the corner is what we call shed. The next one shows you how the first thing you do when you're feeling poorly, check your shed. How's your sleep? How's your hydration? Exercise, are you moving your body? Diet, what food are you giving your body? Are you giving it what it needs? And then on the other side of the handout, there's blank spots. So that way, once you've gone through the other side and gotten ideas about, okay, so these are some things I can do when I'm feeling vulnerable, instead of turning to social media, instead of turning to video games, instead of turning to other things, what are the specific things that I can do in these areas that are my ways to fill my heart and help me when I'm feeling vulnerable? Okay, so as a parent, like I said, all of this, everything we've done for the last 7 years came from my concerns for my kids about what I could do to protect them and to help them thrive. The concerns are real. There's so much out there that if we had more time, we could go into all of the timely tech topics, all the perils, things like sextortion, the things like drugs being available to be delivered to your door through Snapchat. And they're laced with fentanyl, and one pill will kill. There's so many things out there that are scary, but we developed over time 5 things. If you'll do these 5 things, it will pretty much take care of most all of the concerns that you may have as a parent, and it will keep your kids safe, and it will help them to thrive. So there is a path forward, there is hope, and we're gonna dive into that now. So there's outer measures, there's things that you can do that are outside and the things you can do that are inside. Ideally, you want to not only control your kids' environment, but you want to help them decide what they want their life to look like. And from the inside, have that inside protection. So you've got to have both. You have to have, if you go to the next one, you've got to have that outer protection with filtering, with monitoring, and controls. And that's the outer protection. So when you've got your phone, you can set on a Apple, you can set screen time limits that will help filter what they have access to or what you have access to. I've recently set up my own screen time limit so I spend less time on things that take up my time that I don't want to spend there. So I've limited social media apps on my own screen time. Android is called Digital Wellbeing. The router controls everything that comes into your home. So if you don't already have a router set up, that is a good basic first step. Get a router. Griffin is a great one. And then that way you can control what comes through, what you want internet-wise in your home. And then on our website, once again, we try to make everything you might possibly need free for you on our website. So on there, you can download in English or in Spanish our family technology plan that will walk you through a 7-step process of how to come up with your own family policies. It just kind of walks you through the conversation that as a family, not the parent saying, here's a contract I want you to sign, that you know your kids are not going to follow and you're setting them up for failure. Instead of doing that, include them in the development of this family technology plan. Question, can I put you on the spot? Would you be more happy to follow family rules when it comes to technology if you got to be part of making those rules? Why? Yeah, he said it makes you feel like you're not so powerless. If we include all the family members in the development of our family technology plan, they will have buy-in and they can help keep you accountable too. And together we can have a healthier relationship with our technology. So, and then I already mentioned this one, anything that has autoplay, just turn it off. It's a really simple, easy, quick thing to do. So these fall into the category of monitoring and filtering. That is important, but you can't stop there. You've got to do the mentoring, and that's where we teach the 5 core habits. So we're gonna, so if you start off with no restrictions and things go bad, and then you like put in restrictions, it never works as well as if you start with a more guided approach and then gradually widen it out. Like I said, healthyscreenhabits.org, you can download it for free. And then the inner protections, this is where if your whole family learns the 5 core habits and help each other to develop those, then you get that inner protection that's gonna be there no matter whether the filters work or not. When they leave to go to college, they will leave and take that with them. So habit number 1, well, before we get that, talk. Your most important key, the most important filter, the most important mentoring happens when you talk with your kids and not at them, talk with them. As you can see, they're super smart. They have so much knowledge about things. So here is habit number 1. Habit number 1 is give your phone a bedtime. Why do you think that would have any impact on your screen habits?
Well, maybe when you're falling asleep instead of saying like one more video, you'll be able to just get off.
Yeah. And if you make the choice about, okay, what time, maybe the time you pick is 10 p.m. Maybe the time you pick is 7 p.m. But the important thing is, with your parents, pick a time. Give your phone a bedtime, adults too, and then that way you'll be able to have a more meaningful evening and you'll make very much better decisions when you're not laying in bed thinking, should I or shouldn't I, right? Okay, habit number 2. So I don't know about you guys, but this one is one that has been life-changing for me. I can't tell you how many times, even now, I'll pick up my phone and I totally forget what I was doing. So habit number 2 is when you pick up your device, if you tell yourself, okay, what's my purpose? I need to answer emails, or I need to scroll for 15 minutes because I just really need to, like, whatever your purpose is, if you decide when you pick it up and decide how long it should probably take you, I typically actually will say, hey, Siri, set a timer for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever that predetermined amount of time is that my purpose should take me. That's my way of trying to fight back against big tech's persuasive design and attention economy tools that would normally pull me in more. So one of my co-founders, Amy, she learned to not really like this one, but it was very helpful in her family because her daughter, who at the time was about 10, anytime she picked up her phone, her daughter would say, hey mom, what's your purpose? And so it's a fun way for our kids to actually help us develop healthy screen habits too. So for the under 18 crowd in here, I give you full permission to ask your parents, hey, what's your purpose? Okay? And it's one that will make a big difference in fighting that persuasive design and being intentional with your use with your phone. Okay, healthy screen habit number 3. What do you guys think of the granny rule? And it's so fun. When I go to a middle school or even an elementary school and I show them that video, they start snickering because they all know. They know that, you know, when someone asks them to send a nude, well, would you want granny to see a nude picture of you? No, so don't send it. When somebody's doing something online and they're being unkind, if cyberbullying would end if everybody thought, healthy screen habit number 3, before you send it, would you want grandma to see it? If you don't, then don't send it, don't say it, don't do it. Any insight from the front row of what you think of the grandma rule? Yeah?
We have a sign at work that goes with our social media. If you don't want it on a billboard, don't post it on your social media account.
Yep, wise words, wise words. Because you think it's private, but nothing ever is. And so, yes. Any other thoughts before we move on to healthy screen habit number 4? All right. Healthy screen habit number 4 is when you're with other people or working on something important, what do you do with your phones? Put them away. On silent is great, but away, out of sight is even better. The research shows that even if it's just sitting on the desk, test scores are lower. Focus is lower. Research shows that anytime you get a notification, it actually takes your brain 20 minutes to refocus. So if you think, oh, you know, it's on silent, I'm not gonna get the notification. Sometimes you still may get the little buzzy. Anytime it's there, it is taking your focus away. There's research that also shows that if you're out to a social event with somebody and your phone is on the table, it's so cool. I'm not sure exactly how the study was designed, but the outcome was that they determined that people share less deep thoughts and feelings. They're less likely to really connect on a deeper level when the phone is out, because they know that phone being there, that you are only one ring away from not being their first priority. And so when you are with another person, if you will put it out of sight, it will make a difference in the ability that you have to connect with that other person. And if you put it out of sight when you're doing homework, when you're doing work, when you're doing whatever, you will be able to have greater focus. We lost Clint, but I wanted to give him a great big shout out. Tooele School District, just this past week, they have implemented the phones away for the day policy. And he was saying that it's been going pretty well. I'd love to hear from the kids who are in the school district. Any feedback? We've got some here, some there. How do you feel like the phones away for the day is affecting your school?
We focus more. Like, we can focus on school more.
Are you just saying that because you know that's what you think? I think.
No.
I still see kids on their phones.
Yeah,
Do you?
It still happens.
It will, but hopefully less and less. Because as more people are putting them away, that becomes more the norm. What's that? Oh, he said that as they've had their phones put away, they're able to focus better. And that they still see them, some kids have them out. Only 2 or 3 have gotten caught. So hopefully maybe you can help them. Hey, follow healthy screen habit number 4 and put it away. Okay, we had another comment back here.
I'm not a student, but my student completed an assignment in class for the first time this year.
Can we give our school administrator a round of applause? Not only does he feed the baby, he's saving our children. Woo! Yes, it will make a difference. And that's why it's healthy screen habit number 4. Healthy screen habit number 5 is the one I keep it to the end because it is seriously the most important. If you only ever do one thing, if you only have one takeaway from tonight, I hope it is healthy screen habit number 5 and you put it into action in your lives and in your family. Okay. You'll get the biggest bang for your buck. all of the biggest worries and concerns that parents typically have when it comes to screens can be eliminated with this one healthy screen habit. And I'm under no illusion, I know this is the hardest one. It is the hardest one, especially if it's something that you haven't been doing in your family all throughout. Kids love having their devices in the bathrooms, in the bedrooms. And it could be that they have no ill intent. But I'm telling you, even the best kids get contacted by predators out there. They get contacted by people who are doing sextortion. They get contacted by people who are cyberbullying them. And if they have their devices in their bedrooms, you may not know about it until it's too late. So it is worth the battle. And I recognize it will be a battle. Maybe you'll have kids that are just, sure, whatever, mom and dad. But typically that's not the case. But I promise you it is worth the battle. And there's a couple of things I'm going to show you the reason why. This one is typically a little bit of a hard sell, especially for the kids. But I've got some reasons that maybe you would even like, okay? What's your first take on having no screens in the bedrooms or bathrooms? Kids, I want your honest input.
I dislike it.
Okay, why do you dislike it? Okay. Is there somewhere else? Oh, she said that she likes watching TikTok in her room because her family is really loud and she likes to be able to listen to it where it's quiet. Fair reason. So let's troubleshoot this. Is there somewhere else quiet in your house where you could watch it that's not in your bedroom? Most of the things, if you work hard enough, you can find a solution that will work. So the 5 S's are the reasons why we don't want screens in the bedrooms or the bathrooms. Sleep disruption. If your phone is in your bedroom, if your TV, if your iPad, if your Nintendo Switch, if any screen is in your bedroom, your sleep will be disrupted. Social isolation. You're much less likely to spend time with your family if you've got a screen that you spend time with behind closed doors. You're more likely to come across sketchy content. Sketchy people are more likely to come across your kids. Sexual predators are out there. It's a true danger. It's a growing danger. And then this one is the one that may convince our amazing teenagers and tweenagers. And that is stolen sanctuary. I just want you to think about how anything on your device, when you bring it into your room, then everything comes with you. Any drama from school, any worries about grades, that all comes into your bedroom with you. If you will decide to follow the healthy screen habit number 5 and have no screens in your room or in the bathrooms, then that can be your sanctuary. It can be your safe place where there's nobody that's making you feel less than. Whether it's somebody you know in real life or whether it's an influencer on social media, it can be a place where it truly is a sanctuary, which means it's a safe place, a refuge from anything that may make you feel less than or unsafe, may make you feel more vulnerable. So stolen sanctuary, sexual predators, sketchy content, social isolation, sleep disruption. Have I convinced you to implement healthy screen habit number 5 in your family? I hope so. I really do hope so. Because this one habit will make such a difference in your individual lives and in your life as a family. So going on, parents, this is for you. Our children are going to make mistakes. No matter how amazing they are, no matter how smart they are, how kind they are, how thoughtful they are, they're going to make mistakes. So please make sure that you are their safe place, that they know that they can come to you, that they know that there's nothing that they could do that would make you not love them. There's so many really tragic stories, families that we've talked to, people we've had come on our podcast who have talked about how they did everything right, but in a situation where there was cyberbullying and they didn't feel like they could come talk to their parents and the child took their life instead. Situations with pornography where they struggled for years because they didn't feel like they could talk to their parents. Situations where there was sexual extortion, where somebody had posed as a member of the opposite sex and said, send me a picture and I'll send you one. And then once that picture got sent, they started harassing that person and extorting them for money. And then when they couldn't pay, they said all these horrible things, which led to these children, these tweens and teens taking their lives. Parents, we have got to be a safe place where our kids know that there's no topics that are off limits. There's nothing that they could do that would change our love for them. And that, you know, that's the most, and that happens. You remember how we talked about talking to your kids? The more you talk to them, the more they know that nothing's off limits to talk about. That's where that relationship gets built. And then collective action. As we work together to support each other, you guys have a lot of parents here tonight. If together you decided, hey, we're gonna implement the 5 core habits in our family. If together you decided to implement what Jonathan Haidt in his book, The Anxious Generation, he gave the same recommendations that we've been giving for years, and that is to delay smartphones, delay social media. And as you do it together, then your kids can't say, I'm the only one. Our recommendation is no smartphones until 14 or older and no social media until 16 and older. It's backed by science, it's backed by the research. I recognize that a lot of times when you don't know it, you just go with whatever you go with, and then you feel a little bit stuck. This is not a judgment on anybody. This is just what the science says is a recommendation. So if you haven't already given it to your kids, you know, this is the guidelines that are scientifically backed. If you have given your kids more social media than is wise, talk with them about it. Talk about how it can be used for good. Talk about the algorithm. Talk about how healthy screen habits, the 5 core habits can you know, set up limits, but be collaborative with it, okay? And if you need phones before they're 14, there's a lot of really great options out there. The TrueMe phone, the Gab phone, the Pinwheel phone. You can get an Android or a Apple, but kids are really good at getting past the limits on those. So this is our recommendation: delay, delay, delay. And if you do it as a collective action, it's so much easier. If you want more guidance on how to step into social media, how to use social media in a way that's less harmful, we have this, it's not actually on our website, but if you contact me through the website, I will send it to you. But basically kind of walks you through how to help your kids once they do start using social media, whether it's 16, hopefully, but if they've started using it earlier, get started on this. So that way you can make sure that they know how to use it in a way that's going to be less detrimental. So that way they can know how to not get stuck in that cycle of vulnerability. And then this is our website, healthyscreenhabits.org. If you go to that tools tab up there, that's where all the free downloads are. There's also, if you scroll up on this main page, all those little videos of the different habits are there. You can click to print out the habits infographic. Within the tools, there's some other free printables we haven't even talked about, things to build emotional literacy. If our kids are having feelings and they don't know what they are, it's harder to work through it. And so there's a whole printable about emotional literacy, tons of resources. Like I said, this is a big part of our life. It's not going away, but we don't have to be scared. We can be empowered. There's things you can do to develop the relationship with technology you want for your family. You can use our family technology plan, figure out how you're going to implement it in your family, how to use technology for good. It can be a good, positive thing. Our podcast we just started season 12. We've got a whole library of all the best experts about every possible topic you could know about or want to know about. Like I said, we want to make it parenting technology easier. We want to educate and empower families to be able to have a healthier relationship with technology and to make sure that our technology stays a tool, never a replacement for human connection, because that is up to us. When we are intentional with technology, we can make it be that tool. And like I said, if you scan this, it'll take you directly to it. And so we'll leave that up there. If you have any questions, I'm willing to stay for as long as you guys want, but I know that there's some amazing crumble cookies out there. So we'll close it up, but like I said, I'm available for whatever questions. If you want to do open questions.
I'm glad you ended with that because that was in my notes. I'm sure she would stick around to answer questions. I forgot to ask you in advance, but I'm sure she will. We do have a lot of the flyers that Juliana mentioned printed for you. So if you want to take them home, please do. We have our counseling department also had a few printouts to share with. I think some of you grabbed it about different emojis that kids can be using and different things like that.
It's a whole different language. Grab the emoji glossary.
Yes, so, and we do have plenty of cookies. I even brought baggies. Please take them home to your children, your spouses, your everything. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and being here with us. So
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick, I forgot to tell you guys about this. So this is the book that we wished we had as parents in 2018. So we went through and took all the research that we've gathered, all the information, all that you want your kids to know, and made it in a very colorful, engaging workbook format. So there's like at the end of each chapter, some questions to kind of reinforce what they learned. If you want to dig into the research behind it, there's 4 pages of peer-reviewed research back here. There's a letter to the parents on how to utilize it. It's available on Amazon. We tried to make it as easy as possible. There's actually some copies out on the table that you can just scan the QR code and purchase. If you have anybody in your life you would like to give a copy of this to. I've also got some other ones that I love that are not from us, but if you have anybody in your life you're trying to talk to about pornography, this is a great one. Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior. And this is Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, I guess Senior. This is the OG. Helps you understand, helps your kids understand their physiological reaction to pornography and helps like process it so it's not a moral issue, it's a public health issue, it's a physiology, how do we do that? And then since I'm in Utah, I wanted to share this one is if you are LDS, it has it's like a driver's ed manual for a smartphone from an LDS perspective. So we don't usually share this one because we just keep everything secular in all that we do at Healthy Screen Habits, but I felt like I'd be doing a disservice to the community in case that's something that anybody wanted. So this one's available, all of these are available on Amazon as well as Healthy Screen Habits. So those are some more tools outside of our website. Any other questions that you want to ask for the whole group? Otherwise, we can go get cookies and I'll answer individual questions.
If people want to help this message get out and have other groups that they're a part of that might want to have you or one of the other members of organizations speak, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So on our website, so tools was right here, right? Over here, there's a book of presentation one. And then also you can send me a message if you just have a question about something or if you wanted to request a presentation for a small parent group or for school. We do presentations for high school, middle school, and K through all elementary schools too. And we make sure that everything is very developmentally appropriate and gets them where they're at so that way it all makes sense and they can grow up with healthier screen habits than we did, because I'm still trying to rein mine in, and these 5 core habits make a big difference for me. So any other questions? All right.